Hey Media Mail Gang, it is Katie with KateyReads back for a part 2 on my book series. So yeah, let's get into it. I'm going to explain the anatomy of a book. I'm going to explain the copyright page, and I'm going to briefly touch on first editions. I am not a guru by any means. I am just going to share what I know and what I've learned so far selling books for the past 2 years. So first up is, this is what a book looks like. So the front cover, this is the front cover of a book. This is the back cover of a book. You've got your paperback, and then you've got your hardcover books. Hardcover books sometimes have what's called a dust jacket, which is a piece of paper that protects the outer layer of the hardcover book. Now, paperback books aren't necessarily a whole lot different from hardcover books, but for the case of hardcover books and the fact that vintage and antiquarian books require a little bit more detail to where you'd use the verbiage that I'm about to share with you, I'm going to use a hardcover book for the next piece of this video. Okay, so first we have the top part of your book. Top part of the book is going to be called the top head or top edge. You can kind of use either or. The bottom part of the book is going to be the bottom edge. So when I am discussing that the edges of the book have bumps and wear, which I would do for this one, that's what I'm meaning, and that's what a book collector or someone who knows books would want in a description. These corner edges, I literally just call them corners. I don't know the special name for them. There may be a special name for them. I'm not sure. Right here you have what's called the spine. Sometimes the spine will have little brackets and raised or embossing. Those are words that you want to indicate when you're listing the condition of them, especially if it's a leather-bound book. Leather-bound books, if you saw in my previous video, I explained can sometimes chip, and that literally is the material coming off of the spine. So you'll want to indicate that in your listing and in the description. Now to more of the inside of the book. This is what is called a front hinge and a back hinge, or just hinges in general. You could kind of do that either way. Now the inside here, this is called the free end paper, and these are important because depending on the book, especially if it's vintage or antiquarian, it will be an important piece to define the book's condition or value. If this was torn or ripped or not in good condition, that would be an important thing to indicate, and that would also kind of define whether you're listing it for acceptable or good or very good, that type of thing. Now the very inside of the book, the very center, this is called gutter. I typically don't need to use this when I am talking about a description, but sometimes for antiquarian books, especially if they're really old, 1800s, 1900s, some of them naturally just open up to a certain section of the book, and I just indicate that the gutter on page 139 is very deep, and then I would indicate if pages are like actually loose and falling out, or if the pages are still intact, the gutter is just very worn. You'd want to take pictures of that. Now this part I believe is called the fly leaf. This part right here, I believe that's called the fly leaf. Right here you have the actual title page, and then immediately after the title page is what's called the copyright page, and this is where you will find all the information that you need to know regarding publisher, the year, the ISBN number, just all information in regards to the book that you'll need for item specifics, for your listings, description, title, all of that. Obviously for your listings. I don't know why I said that. Now all of this, I sometimes indicate these as outside pages, especially if there's things like this. There's some like staining. I don't know if you can see that on the outside pages, but this is actually also technically called the text block. So either or, I haven't really had any complaints or issues or returns because I didn't use the right formal terminology, but this is actually technically called the text block. Now this part here where the binding and the spine kind of connect, that's called the top part's called the headband, the bottom part is called the tail. It's sometimes also called, I think it's sometimes also called footband. I typically will just state if the spine and the binding are loose, and as you can see, the glue is still, you know, it's a Harry Potter book, it's not a super old book, so the glue is still pretty good shape. Now this is an antiquarian book. If you look at this antiquarian book, the binding and the spine are very severely separated. So you would just kind of indicate that in your listing. In the description part, your picture should kind of show all flaws as well. You have up to 12 pictures. So with certain books that have extreme issues, especially antiquarian or older books in general, I really would say like any books older than probably the 60s that have extreme wear, I would probably go above and beyond and put as many pictures as I can of all the flaws for the book. So for this book, I would say the front free end paper has extreme writing inside and foxing and stains. I would say the hinge is pretty worn because it is, and it's also because the spine, like see how if I pulled really hard, I could probably tear this off completely, the front cover completely. This isn't leather, but this is kind of like a cloth-like hardcover, and see how the tops and tail are really frayed. You can kind of see them, they're frayed like jeans would be. I'm going to indicate that as well. And then, you know, bumps on the corner. The text block has lots of foxing, things like that. Now, this one doesn't have necessarily a flyleaf page. That's okay. You have to remember, like, every book is going to be different based on the year, the publisher, the style. Everything's kind of different. It does have the title page though. You need to have the title, you need to have the author, and you need to have the year in your title for your listing. That's absolute minimum. You can also add in things like rare, if it truly genuinely is rare. You can add things like first edition, first printing, first edition, fifth printing, book club edition. Those are important things that I would include in the title. So right here we see that the publisher is Laidlaw Brothers. And this book is by William McCall, PhD, and J. David Hauser, the McCall speller. And immediately after the title page, even in 1925, you can see the year. Now these older books, you're literally going to like see the year, the publisher, maybe the city and state, or maybe the country, and that's about it. So that's what it kind of looks like for a older book, antiquarian book. For a more modern book, and since Harry Potter first editions, especially editions that have errors where maybe it doesn't say J.K. Rowling, but it says her full name, which I think is like Joanne or something like that. Those types of editions, you want to be able to read, you want to be able to catch all of that. So same process. You have your flyleaf, you have your title page, and then you have the copyright page. And then sometimes there's a dedication page too. So the copyright page, if you look closely, you'll be able to see right next to the copyright, you see 2016. So looking through the rest of the text, there's no other years. So I know that this book was published in 2016 based on the top part here. Next, I'm going to look for if it's a first edition. So right here, it says first edition, July 2016. 109876543321. That's what indicates that it's a first edition. And so what I would do is probably Google this just to double check and see what a first edition copyright page looks like for Harry Potter and the Cursed Child parts 1 and 2, just to compare with what I have. I am not an expert with first editions, so I don't mean to make anyone upset when I say that I'm Googling that, but the fact of the matter is, before 1929, publishers weren't even consistently indicating if it was a first edition or what printing it was. After 1929, they all decided to kind of do their own thing. And even then, a lot of them used what's called points. And points is where you know the edition based on maybe this text would be red and then a different edition, the text would be black. So not all of them necessarily got on board either with indicating the edition and the printing. So editions means that they changed nothing in the text. Printing means publishers print books in batches based on how they think they'll sell and then based on demand for that book. So first batch could be 5,000 books. Next batch could be 25,000 books. Let's say it's a major hit. Some books, it's on its 55th printing. Other publishers can purchase rights or transfer rights to books, authors. There's so many different ways that many publishers or many different editions can come out. Someone can make a movie and then you've got a brand new edition with a fancy movie cover with, whatever. So if you're a Stephen King reader, you know that there's so many different editions and covers out there for some of his books. So while it's a first edition, there may have been no change to the actual text. Printings, there can be a lot. And so a first edition first printing is significantly different than a first edition 35th printing, if that makes sense. So back to the copyright page. Now, if you're an Amazon seller like myself, I scan for Amazon first for all my books. And then any books I can't sell on Amazon, I sell on eBay. Unless they're vintage antiquarian, then I immediately go to eBay first. Inside the copyright page, this is where you will find the ISBN number. So ISBN stands for International Standard Book Number. This came about around 1966. I think it started at like 8 or 9 digits and then slowly progressed to 10 digits. And then after 2007, it became 13 digits. And if you're a textbook seller, you'll sometimes see 10 and 13 digits still. It kind of depends on the publisher, but every country is different too. So I do sell books that are in other languages from other countries. And sometimes their ISBN numbers, actually every time, their ISBN numbers look totally different than what we do here in the US. So that's something to kind of take into consideration too. If you get a foreign language book, first, use Google Lens to take a picture of the inside of the book and figure out what language you're working with if you don't recognize that language. And then from there, do some Google research of how that country handles ISBN numbers, so that way you can list it and make sure that you're listing it for the correct price, so that way you're not maybe listing it too low or listing it too high, and so you can make a sale. So finally, guys, I'm going to briefly talk about special editions, which are typically limited editions or book club editions. It will typically be on the inside copyright page, but I'm going to throw up some pictures as well so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I don't have any books in the immediate area that I can share with you and show you a live example. Book club editions are, or can also be like book of the month club edition, are typically printed by book clubs or exclusively given to libraries for the purpose of a book club. They're not always printed by the actual publisher, so sometimes they can be printed with cheaper material. I have found vintage books that are book club edition are sought after. The more modern book club editions, I haven't sold a lot of those, to be 100% honest. So you maybe could get some good money for those, but I don't necessarily know directly from experience. And then as far as limited editions, it will typically say, and you're gonna see this a lot with certain antiquarian books too, it will typically say 1 of 25, or I'm going to try and find some Google images that I can put up here and share with you guys so you guys have some sort of visual to go along with what I'm saying. Keep in mind with the additions, you'll want to keep that in your title, you'll want to keep that in your description, you'll want to take pictures of it. And I guess one other final tip I want to leave with you, breaking out the Anne Rice again. I want to just let you guys know that when you see barcodes like this, you can definitely scan them, but because this book is not as modern, a little bit older, and you can tell that because the ISBN number is kind of older looking, I guess I want to say, you can actually do talk to text in the search bar on eBay, recite out the ISBN number, and then you will see the sold listings based on that ISBN number. And that is another quick way that if scanning the barcode doesn't get you anywhere, that's another really quick way to look up comps on a book. I know that's something I frequently hear from people, is that there's so many and it takes so long. We all know that doing comps takes a while regardless what category it is, so I do encourage you to at least try and use the barcode scanner or talk to text in the search bar, looking up ISBN numbers, or even by title and author. You could do talk to text for that as well. That's how I do a lot of my comp research, and it's a little bit faster that way, so I hope that helps you. Okay, that's all I have for this video. I didn't want to ramble too much. Like I said, I'm not a guru. I'm just learning as I go, and I wanted to share what I've learned and what I do know, being the book nerd that I am. So, Media Mail Gang, I will see you in my next video.